So morning everyone, thank you for joining us for this briefing today. So as you should know from the fact that you've registered, 1Spatial, Southern, Northumbrian and Yorkshire are looking to co-host a sprint at Northumbrian's Innovation Festival this year. And there's a little bit of collaboration and pre-work that we wanted to bring into our sprint this year. So this session is really just to give you a briefing as to our thoughts, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm Jess Hughes, I head up utilities at 1Spatial, and the team that are putting this together are Clive Wells, Innovation Manager from Northumbrian Water, Steve Robson, one of the Innovation Consultants from Northumbrian Water, Sasha Hall-Jones, Innovation Consultant at Southern Water, Tom Ogden, Innovation Specialist at Yorkshire Water. We've got Seb Lesware, our CTO at 1Spatial, who will do a little bit of talking about the solution. And then unfortunately not with us today, but who will be leading from a 1Spatial perspective at the festival is Vicky White, who's one of our senior account managers. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If I can ask everybody to stay on mute where possible, unless you are speaking, that would be fantastic. And then just a quick overview of the agenda for today. Clive's going to talk us through the festival for those of you that haven't been, just to give you a little bit of an overview. And then Steve, Sasha and Tom are going to talk through the challenge that we're looking to address during the festival from each of their respective organisations. They'll then hand over to Seb, who will talk you through what the 1Spatial solution already is. So that's very much our foundation and our starting point, and what the opportunity is for you guys on the call today to potentially enhance that solution and how we want to do that. We'll then go back to Tom, who will talk us through the plan for both some pre-festival work and the plan for the festival sprint, so that you've got an idea of what our expectations are for you and how you can get involved to help us enhance the solution. And then Sasha will talk you through a questionnaire that we'll ask anyone who wants to be a bit more hands-on and be involved in the sprint to fill in following this event. And then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for a Q&A where you can ask any questions. When we get to the Q&A, I'll stop sharing screen, and then if you just want to type your questions in the chat box or raise your hand, we'll come to you so that we've got a bit of an order there. Brilliant. So over to you, Clive.
Thanks very much. Okay, if you can stick our first slide up, that's great. I thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes really giving those of you who are not familiar with or who haven't attended before the Northumbrian Water Innovation Festival a thumbnail sketch of what it is, what we do. So this is something that we've been running for 5 years. This is the 6th year now, and each year the festival has got bigger and bigger and encompassed more and more people from different countries, more and more suppliers in the supply chain, and more water companies as well. It's kind of a summer festival meets a business conference meets celebrity bake-off. Let's have the next slide, just to give you a kind of feel for what is it like. Essentially, we take over the Gosforth Park Racecourse in Newcastle, Marquee Village, and there's something like 15 or so large 50-person capacity marquees, and in each tent we run either a data hack, a design sprint, or what we term a year's worth of work in a week, which is like an accelerator sprint for a given concept by drawing people together. It's highly organized, and yet it's a lot of fun. So there's everything you'd expect to see at a summer festival there. You can get your face painted, have a massage, get some well-being type activities done at the same time as attending a sprint or a hack where you're working in a different way outside your comfort zone with a whole load of people who are also interested in it. Each sprint has a high-profile sponsor, and those range from 1Spatial, Ordnance Survey, IBM, Microsoft, O2, BT. All sorts of people have sponsored sprints for us. The host organisation, which is usually us, but in this case it's a three-way sprint, and we pick some societal issues. So they're not necessarily water-specific issues or challenges. This one happens to be, but they they're spread right across the broad spectrum of everything we do. And you can see some stats there about the kinds of numbers that this event approaches. And overwhelmingly, people's response is always, my God, I never realized it was going to be this big. And we've been trying to tell people, you know, through all the statistics and everything, but it is quite overwhelming. Let's have a look at the next slide. So it's a different way of working in a completely different environment. It's an environment for innovation, but we bring in a lot of celebrity guests. So, for instance, over the years we've had Carol Vorderman, Alexander Armstrong, Louis Theroux, Steph McGovern, Dick Strawbridge put in guest appearances, come and actually join us in the tent for a few minutes, as well as doing keynotes and things like that. Let's have a look at the next slide. And it's not we go and do 3 to 5 days work as a sprint and then forget all about it and it stops. These sprints generally roll on after the event and become something, either a consortia, or they deliver a product or a service, or we work with an innovator in the supply chain to deliver something really impressive. And we've got all sorts of examples of that having happened over the years. And next slide, which is my last slide, just to give you a feel of what it's like. These are shots from the tent itself. This is the 2018 Innovation Festival, and you can see there's a variety of people gathered around cabaret tables. Because we're working in tents, we wear headphones and we have a speaker ball that's passed around when we're addressing the group, but a lot of the time we're just working on cabaret tables or around post-it flip charts, screens. There's a resident artist, and as you can see there's Steph McGovern dropping in. So that's all I really had to say, just to give you a flavour of the Innovation Festival. So I'll hand over at that point.
Hello there. Yeah, I'm Steve Robson from Northumberland Water. I'm a pollution manager, and I just want to give you a bit of an outline of basically some of the issues that water companies are having. So this slide here just illustrates what was pre October 2011, before the transfer. So typically you would have your terraced housing going around the back there. The line is private there in red. Down towards the main road, where you would have your main sewer, your public sewer, which was maintained by the local water company. You can see there the terraced housing will be private right up to the point of the connection into the main road. The same with the detached house, the semi-detached house, and the block of flats. If I can have the next slide, please. So after 2011, some of those assets became public assets, public sewers, transferred assets. So after the transfer in the terraced house, you'll notice after it leaves the first property there on the left-hand side, that it becomes blue, so it becomes a public sewer. And the detached house following there on the right-hand side, it would become a public asset once it left the boundary, and so on with a semi-detached. The block of flats would remain private up to the point where it left the boundary itself. Want to have the next slide? So before the transfer, we were looking at about 15,000 kilometres of public sewers. But after the transfer, we had an additional 13,500 kilometres. And obviously, a lot of that network was not mapped. So it gives a few issues in terms of trying to evaluate what was public and what was still private. But have the next slide, please. So we went out and we started to look at physically mapping some of the sewer network, which is huge. Costed about 10.8 million over the next 3 years after 2011. We also tried to do some inference in terms of mapping some sewer network detail. And in terms of the issues that we have, obviously it's difficult for us to triage calls, and we have an operational maintenance program which is difficult to model and risk model in terms of the asset and the length of asset, and also planned replacement of the right sewers. But also it gives us problems for regulatory reporting in terms of pollutions, in terms of flooding per 10,000 kilometres of sewer, because we just don't know exactly what in terms of the scale of the network that we actually have, because it's not mapped.
Yeah, that's me, sorry. So yeah, I just thought I'd give a little bit of an overview of the Yorkshire Water Challenge. So I'm just trying to highlight sort of how big a geographical area our network sits within. So we've got 12,000 square kilometres of the UK there that we're sort of in our area. And within that area, we've got around 31,000 kilometres of what we describe as legacy network. So a sewer that we had in our ownership before 2011. Then in 2011, there was an estimated additional 21,500 kilometres of network that was transferred to us. And that's an estimation. I suspect that there's probably a lot more out there. But that was done on the WRC figures at the time. And in the past 10 years since the transfer, we've mapped about 2,500 kilometres of network. And so that has been the process at Yorkshire Water has been that we'll go out at the report of a failure, we'll go out and we'll deal with the failure, and we will also we'll map the network at that time. So it causes us problems. So this does. We've got all sorts of problems that are caused by not having our network mapped, and so the majority of what's not mapped is close to a customer's property, which results in flooding and pollution from those assets. And where the red X's are on this, I did update the figures, and so around 50% of our flooding incidents especially come from transferred assets. So they're the ones that we record and go against our numbers. But also with that, there's around 44% of all flooding incidents that we respond to are private. So we're going to things that a customer rings in, tells us they've got a problem. We can't say either way, yes, it's us, or no, I'm sorry, it's all your assets around your property. You need to call your insurance company or your local drainage contractor. So that's costing us an absolute fortune per year to go and deal with those incidents, which it's a big problem. So next slide, please, if we could. So so the things that we're doing to address this. So we've got, and specifically around the mapping elements, we've got trials underway. We've got a smart networks project ongoing. So the first thing that I believe is required to have a truly smart network is to know where all your network is and how it connects together. And so we are doing some mapping activity in an area of Leeds where we're going out and physically mapping those assets. So we're going using Edgeby Field maps to map all the additional nodes, public and private, that are at customers' properties. And then we're going to go out and do a dot-to-dot with those nodes using our lateral CCTV van, working from the manholes in the main sewer and going back up the connections to the customer's property, to all these nodes that we've mapped to connect the dots, and also importantly collect all the condition data around those sewer pipes. So that's one element of what we're doing, but I'm sure we can make that a lot smarter through this process. And another element of what we're looking at as well is using high resolution aerial imagery. So that's captured from multiple angles, and we're actually making 3D models of a couple of areas of our catchments. The main reason we're doing that is to identify misconnections coming into our network. So where sink waste is going into a surface water pipe, and then that comes out, it doesn't get treated, it goes out into the environment, into a watercourse. But what we're also looking to do from that data is to map those assets again, putting those dots on the maps, so that we can sort of better understand where all the network is around properties. And look into the future on this as well. So as part of this storm overflow reduction paper produced by the government, they specifically called out that we need to map more network, and I believe that that is the key enabler for sort of doing things differently, for that separation of surface water and foul from the combined system. So if we understand where all our network is and how it all connects, then we can start to disconnect it and untangle that spaghetti's sort of web of pipes that are under the ground, and stop treating so much water that just doesn't need treating. It could go back out into the environment and not cause any harm.
Hi everyone, I'm Sasha Jones and I work in the innovation team at Southern Water. So Southern Water is water and wastewater provider for majority of sort of Sussex, Hampshire and Kent. So I think like many of you on the call, I'm not a wastewater or network management expert, but I've been working on this challenge for a couple of years now, really looking to sort of diversify the opportunities for sort of new technology and solutions to solve this challenge, working with colleagues in the business. And yeah, I can really echo what's been said by Clive and Tom already. We face pretty much all of the same challenges, but with sort of a few specific unique focuses for Southern Water. So Southern has one of the lowest public sewer length per property, and this doesn't really seem to kind of accurately reflect our network. I think a few images might have disappeared, but we can kind of see on our maps that, you know, properties must be linking into the main sewer, but that doesn't seem to be on the map. So, you know, we know that the sewer's there, we just don't have it on our system. So Southern Water is also in quite a significant period of transformation, following kind of quite a challenging few years. So there's a real focus and a lot of investment going on at the moment, trying to improve our networks and service for our customers, but also to sort of overhaul our perception of the business. So we're really looking to be a lot more resilient, smarter and more proactive in how we sort of deal with our wastewater network. And I guess that starts with knowing where our assets are and who they belong to. We've made some quite sort of ambitious pledges as well to meet our goals too. So yeah, in 2008, we were given an estimate for this mapping that was about 54 million. So I think really we were looking to challenge that cost and look to see how we can do this for a lot less. So on the next slide, please. Yeah, so innovation activity today, as I say, we spent a couple of years now reviewing new approaches and technologies. We've already been working quite a while with 1Spatial. So we've completed a successful proof of concept, and we've also got another trial in progress, or I think just coming to a close with OcuAir. So looking at drone mounted thermography to support that sewer identification. And again, you can see some of the sort of benefits that we see for solving this challenge. So improving our sort of operational response, sort of reducing incidents. Again, knowing how much sewer length we have for things like, our off-what price review, giving more to invest in our customers. Also, we've got quite a significant amount of development going on in our region. So improving our DMX score, making life easier for our developers that are building is always a bonus as well. And we're going through quite a significant upgrade of our sort of IT and GIS systems too. So it all kind of links together with what we're doing at Southern at the moment.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully that's given you a bit of background to the challenge and why we're also interested in enhancing the current solution. And then, Seb, if I can hand over to you now to talk through what we've already got up and running and that we're looking to enhance through the sprint.
Sure. Hi, good morning. Seb Lesware, I'm CTO at 1Spatial. So I was just going to walk through an example of what we've got, what we currently have in terms of the inference process, and so what we're looking to enhance this with. And essentially the inputs to this process are three sources. One is the existing network. What do we know already? What's in our system? What's the existing network? The second thing is OS master map data. So primarily that's the topographic polygons. So you can see the bright colors there, topographic polygons that are added in. Also address space points, so address space plus points, and that helps us work out this building is not just any old building, it's actually a property, so it's likely to have a supply. It's not an outbuilding, it's not a garage. And then other information that doesn't come along with, and plus the highways. So the highways as well is important for working out where we think, if we don't have the mains there, then the highways is a good guess as to where the mains are going to run. Then there's other information that doesn't come from Ordnance Survey, and that gives us additional information, say, about the properties. So knowing the age or the type of a property won't come from Ordnance Survey, but we can source that from different areas. And then the other piece of information that, again, is not critical, but if we can get it, that helps, because otherwise we have to infer it, and that is the property boundary. So Ordnance Survey won't tell me, if I buy a house, won't tell me what my property boundary is. It'll just say, here's a building, here's a front garden, here's a back garden. And so the property boundaries help us to work out, where does this pipe become the responsibility of the homeowner because it's crossed their property boundary. We can infer that from the OS master map if we need to, but it's more accurate if we can get that data. And typically those are the inputs that we use for this process. Next slide, please, Jess. And so what we do is we use our rules engine. We take that data, we run it through an automatic process using those rules engine to work out what we need to process. And those rules have been developed by sitting down and talking with the engineers, the people who, if you showed them a map, they could say, well, I could probably guess where those things are. I could probably guess that based on the age of that property, and it's a terrace of Victorian houses, typically you'll have things coming out the back every third house. Or a separate pipe every third house that will then be shared, and oh, that's a bigger house, it's got more bedrooms, it's more modern, maybe you'll have a front and back connection. So that sort of knowledge that's embedded in people's heads, we turn that into rules, and then we can generate a best guess as to where these things are, and the output that we generate will tell us things like even things like, we don't even seem to have a main public sewer running along the road. So we probably need to infer that and then work out the various connections for the private sewer transfers and the section 24s and the property association. So where does that then connect in? Okay, next slide, please. So that generates some pretty good results, because we, going from we don't know, we know there's something missing, we don't know where it is, to actually we've got a good guess of where these things are. Now they're always inferred. Okay, they always have to be flagged as this is inferred information, but it gives us a good chance. So before, in one example of a project, we had 12% of all properties in this area were not within 30 meters of a sewer, and after the process, only 1% were not within 30 meters, and that increased the length in those areas by 80%. So from 206 kilometers to 370 odd kilometers of network, and it needs to be automated, because the key thing here is we're trying to sort of save money and get us quickly to a good approximation. So it's a process that runs in minutes, and that generates nearly 14,000 new assets in this area. And so the important thing is these are proposed assets that fit the model of your data, of your network model, but they are flagged as this is inferred. Okay, next slide, please. So again, here's an example of where we're inferring from. On the left, we've got the existing networks. There's very sparse network in this area in blue, and then we're adding the mains, then we're adding all of the connections and the transferred private sewers over to the right. Okay, next slide. So the key things are, there's data that we know about where the network is. There's data that can help us to infer where the network should be. And so what we're going to be looking at is, are there other things that we can be considering, other sources of data, other forms of data, other types of scanning and surveying that can add to that set of input data to help improve the results. And so there are certain things, if you jump to the next slide, please, there are certain things that we know will be useful, and this is stepping through some of the process we'll end up doing. That's sort of detail that we'll skip through for now. If we move on to the next slide, there are various rules that we use to check the different types of data and to make decisions, and it's in these things that any additional information that can help make those decisions for us are going to be really important. So if you step to the next slide, please. So what we're looking for is, are there things that are currently not considered that can be added to the set of rules that we should be including? Are there things that we can add in terms of knowledge. So, for example, the obvious things are the location of inspection chambers or manholes, or some radar scanning that tells us, it gives us a good idea where the pipes actually are. That's sort of obvious initial things that can add to, when we're inferring where these assets are, bits of information sprinkled around that tell us, actually, well, there's a manhole cover, so there's definitely a pipe running through there. That can improve the accuracy of where these things are created. But there's also all sorts of things that are less obvious but might be useful. So, for example, any types of construction or geology or information about what's under the ground might give us a clue that actually the sewer wouldn't run through here because it wouldn't be possible to construct it. So there's areas to avoid. So any sort of information that we think can be used to factor into that, and any sort of decisions about how these things should work and have worked in the past, or the information that my engineers know about where they lay these things, can be factored into these rules. But then there's other things like verifying the model. So is there information that we've got where we can take known existing assets, compare that against where we'd infer them, and say, well, here are the areas where more often than not the inference was wrong, was in the wrong place, and is there a pattern to those? And so comparing against known existing data compared to what we've inferred can help to focus on the areas that can be best done with improving. So anything like that about verifying the model, getting more data, improving the rules that are applied, and then anything else that people can think of that can help to infer this more accurately, based on past experience or new data that we haven't considered before.
Thanks, Seb. We'll now go back to Tom, who will talk us through the plan for both the festival and the pre-festival request from us.
I think you're muted, Tom.
It had to happen at some point.
Yeah, we should have learned by now after 2.5 years of doing this. I was just saying that, yeah, as you're all on the briefing, you've ticked the first box, which is attending the briefing. Following this, there will be a link sent out to a questionnaire. It's I'm not sure if it's going to be a Survey Monkey or a forms based questionnaire to sort of ask you a little bit more detail about your company and what you think what you can bring to this sprint, what data sets you can bring, what expertise you can bring. And so that needs to be completed by Friday, because on Friday we're all meeting up as a team to sort of go through those forms and to pick who we want to invite to take part and showcase their products in the sprint. So that will be the sort of the second day will be made up of this is our data, this is what it looks like, this is what we think, how we think it fits. That's not if you don't get selected through that process, everyone is still welcome to come and take part in the event, and you can register and just be a participant and contribute via that. That means sort of adding your expertise to the process and the 3 days. The festival's running from the 12th to the 14th, as we've seen there, and this is sort of the outline of what's happening. So the sprint is the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and the Thursday. So we've got the activities happening in our tent, and we've also got activities sort of happening at other places, and I think opportunities to sort of break out at lunchtime, and on an evening there's sort of everyone gets back together for some socializing and sort of a bit of networking as well. And this is sort of the outline of the daily activities here. So on the Tuesday, going to go much more into detail about exploring the problem with all the delegates there and getting a lot more views on that problem and how it's affecting all the different water companies. On the Wednesday, this is the day where the companies that are selected will showcase the data and the products and what their solution can bring, and how that might work with in tandem with the 1Spatial product. And then on a Thursday, we're looking to build the business case for a rollout, so that's demonstration of this, and potentially an Ofwat fund bid to demonstrate this new hybrid mapping of sewers sort of method that we've created in action in a real life catchment somewhere in the UK, or several catchments.
Well, thanks, Tom. Sasha, over to you to talk through the next request from us.
Great, thanks, Tom. I think that gives quite a nice summary of kind of what we're looking for next in the sprint. So yeah, following the session, we're going to be sending out a questionnaire. I think it's going to be by SurveyMonkey, I believe. And so yeah, it's just a questionnaire to fill in, quite brief, nothing too onerous, but just gives us really an idea of kind of what your solution is, how you might see that mapping onto the 1Spatial and strengthening that solution. A little bit of company and commercial information, some technical details of the product, and a little bit of questions around a potential pilot approach. So would any sort of testing be required? How might it work? What's the sort of time period? A bit about data and GIS integration would be useful, and a little bit of information on your team. So as I say, sort of nothing too onerous, just gives us a bit of context. And obviously this is a very collaborative event. We're really not strict. Any questions, any discussion, please do get in touch with us. We're really happy to talk through any queries you might have. So yeah, any questionnaires, they could be returned by, I guess, 9 AM on Friday, just because we've got our session, an internal session that day, just to kind of walk through any sort of applications. But anybody welcome to join the sprint as well. So it's not prohibitive, just if we don't take forward a solution. So yeah, really collaborative. Please do get in touch with any questions you might have, and please do return any questionnaires by Friday morning.
Brilliant. So that brings us to the end of what we wanted to run through. So I'll stop sharing screens now. But if anyone has any questions that they wanted to address now, then please go ahead. Clive, looks like you've got a question.
It's not a question, actually. It's just to sort of to chip in. Obviously, I've been listening intently, and I was involved in the 2015 attempt at doing this at Northumbrian Water. I just wanted to sort of say that it's a shared problem right across the whole water industry. So although you've got 3 water companies involved in this sprint, there will be other water companies probably present in there. We're in the process of inviting our counterparts in some of the other companies as well. So we're hoping it's going to be a really well supported sprint. On that day one as well, we're aiming to fill the tent with subject matter experts. So you've heard a little bit about the problem. We think we understand the problem quite well, but we'll have all of the subject matter experts from who have an angle on this, who have a need for the data, who've been involved in mapping it. Maybe we'll have people there who repair blockages on the transferred network and are going to give us the reasons why it's so crucial and what they need to map the network and what it is specifically they want to know about it. Is it just position? Is it depth? Is it purpose, usage? All of those things. Yeah, I guess that's probably all I wanted to say. We're looking for what we're looking for. We've got an approach. We've tried it. We've had moderate success with it. We're trying to increase the level of confidence that various users of the data have, the resulting model have in our business. So instead of viewing the transferred drains data as something to be treated with great caution and reserve, we want to give them as much information about how the information has been derived and just how confident we are that this is good quality data, so then they can use the data accordingly. That's all from me. Thanks, Jess.
Well, thanks, Clive. Does anybody else have any questions at all? No? Okay, brilliant. We must have covered everything then. So we will follow up with the questionnaire, which will come out through SurveyMonkey, and hopefully we look forward to getting some responses from you all by Friday. If anyone has any colleagues or partners or anyone they're working with that you think would be interested in this as well, please do let us know, because we're more than happy to share the recording that we've made today with them. And obviously they're more than welcome to, as long as they can share an email address with us, they can get the questionnaire. If there's any questions in the meantime, obviously utilities@1spatial.com. Feel free to fire questions through to that email address. And if not, we look forward to hearing your responses to the questionnaire. Thanks very much for your time, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.